But thank you.
Thanks. It's nice to be back.
It's great to be back. So the last time we met was not too long ago. Since we met, what has happened in your life? A lot of things, I know.
A lot of things. I released the CD. I received the Broadway World Award for Best Show. They wrote the songs, which is the same title as the CD. I became resident celebrity artist for the Metropolitan Room here in New York City. And I'm going to be there 4 times this year, which is kind of a great thing. I mean, I found, you just played home. I found a home. And I like the idea of being in New York and only playing one venue. I know that a lot of artists like to pop around and they want to work, you know, Carlisle one week and 54 the next week, and then, you know, they'll go over to Bernie and Joanne's but you know what, I don't want to do that. I want my own home.
And the Metropolitan Room is a very interesting home, isn't it?
In a way it
has been for you.
And I have to tell you something. Bernie and Joanne really love artists, and don't they, Andrew?
Really?
And they treat you like your family. And it reminds me of the old days when people used to play The Bottom Line, and Alan Pepple was there, and all those guys. They knew the artists intimately. These artists were friends of theirs for 30 years, 20, 30 years. It wasn't just, they never looked at somebody coming into their venue like it was just, you know, an act coming in, or it was to fill a week, or they didn't go week to week that way. They went relationship to relationship. And it kind of reminds me of the old days when you used to play New York and you had those relationships.
Now the relationships have been plentiful with so many wonderful people that you've met, not only the late Frank Sinatra that you were with and played with and so forth, but so many other great talents as well. Could you just name a few of them for...
Well, you know, when I was a little girl, I had a CBS contract, and I started out in show business when I was 12 years old. And as a result of that, and not being able to work nightclubs because I was too young, so what did they do? They put me on TV, and I got to work with people like Carol Burnett, and Jim Nabors, and Ed Sullivan, and anybody who was sort of under the CBS umbrella, and all of those great TV shows were on at that time. And then I sort of branched out, and I worked at NBC, and I worked with Johnny Carson a lot. In fact, I did the Carson show when they were at Rock Plaza, even before they went out to...
What did you like most about Johnny Carson? Was it his charisma? Was it his looks? His talent, the way he interviewed you? What was it about his personality?
What I personally loved about Johnny Carson was his loyalty.
Yes.
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 I loved, you know...
Straight guy.
You know, when people are good-looking, Teddy, it's a funny thing, because when you get to know people, you don't see them anymore that way. You see inside of them, because you know them. And... with Johnny Carson, I missed him terribly. Oh, thanks, Darren. Thanks so much. I missed him terribly. I missed him terribly when he passed, because I felt not only did we lose a time in this industry, but we lost a type of person in this industry. Johnny wasn't all about big business. Johnny was about a relationship. He was
one of a kind.
He was one of a kind. And if he loved you, you were on that show a lot. You know, a lot of people wouldn't risk putting Pavarotti on, or Joan Sutherland on, or Beverly Sills on. You know, they were always looking for the hot, new kid. He wanted quality on his show. And I think that's why the show lasted as long as it did. Not just because he was a beautiful person and a charismatic person and very smart, may I add. But I think...
And quick.
He was quick, but he was a class act.
Oh, yes. It was a lot like Ed Sullivan in that respect.
Absolutely.
How would you say that his personality was different in a sense than that of Ed Sullivan? Was there some similarities?
No.
Not at all?
No, not at all. No, completely different kinds of people. But, you see, it's different because Ed was hosting a show, but he was hosting a show as an MC. Johnny was hosting a show as part of the show. He was in the joke with you. He was in the conversation with you. He was in the presentation with you. Ed was okay with stepping back. Ed was okay with saying, and here's Teddy Smith. and just stepping back and
let
letting...
Teddy Smith do his bit.
That's right. Johnny would too, but he would then join forces with you and create the moments with you. Ed didn't do that. Ed wasn't a performer. Ed was, Ed was a, I don't know whether a lot of people knew this, but in his youth, Ed was a fighter.
Yes.
He was,
Yeah.
and a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, of course, he had the show on Sunday night. He had the top ratings
He had the
Of all
biggest
the- of all
show
the
in the
great shows.
world. He had the biggest show
and
in the
a
world.
one-hour show on a Sunday night.
That's right.
So it goes to show you don't have to have a show on 4 hours a day to be the #1 rated show in America or around the world. You could have a show that's on 1 hour a week and still maintain that type of loyalty or that type of
Teddy, what you need, I think, from my experience, from what I've learned, what you need is to give the public what they want
Mm-hmm.
and to give the public top-of-the-line quality. You know, people may not know the music business. People may not know the movie business. You know, they know what they know. But you know what they do know? They know when an artist is for real. They know when a person has quality.
and they know when someone's authentic and when someone's phony.
That is correct.
And especially this New York audience. You can't fool them.
You
Ever.
absolutely can't.
Cannot.
And you know what? If you don't respect your audience, leave the business, because you are going to get a walloping for that. Because people who are too egotistical and think they know more than the audience, boy, are they in trouble.
Oh, yes.
Now getting back to the Metropolitan Room for a moment, what is going to be happening on May 14th with your presence there?
Well, I'll be very excited to present They Wrote the Songs. Now, when I first presented They Wrote the Songs, it was the songs of our generation, the songs we grew up with. Elton John, the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, Paul Anka, some of the work that he had, some of the songs from The Wiz, Anthony Newley, people like that. They Wrote the Songs this time is going to be a collection of the writers that I grew up with. Half the show will be the contemporary ones, but the beginning of the show, I want some of the elderly writers that sort of took me into the business, that sort of got me started singing those great songs, and then really work it up into the present.
And who were some of those few people, or several people, that did help you get started in this business? A few.
Well, some of them I got to know, and of course some of them I was too young to know, because certainly I wouldn't have known the Gershwins.
Right.
But and I wouldn't have known Harold Arlen. But certainly there will be pieces like that. And as I start to tell my story a little bit, and I start to tell the folks how I got started, which is a crazy story, and then I start moving more into the present. And I take them on to the journey of where we're going today.
You have a big journey in Vegas, too,
That's
as you
right.
told me earlier.
Yeah, I'm going back to Vegas. You know, the Smith Center for the Performing Arts has become Las Vegas's Kravis Center or Lincoln Center or Kennedy Center. It's become that kind of prestigious venue. It's absolutely gorgeous. And they have the best people, the best artistic directors there. And I'm so thrilled because they're allowing me to return. So I'm going to bring the show there.
And we're so thrilled that you're here tonight. And hopefully we could broadcast live from the Metropolitan Room with Andrew Martin.
That.
Or from Vegas or from somewhere else. Because we need to give this show a new dimension, right,
Oh,
Olga?
you should come
What
to
do you say, Olga?
Vegas.
Oh, I agree. I think it's such a fresh air to be
yeah.
something different and unique like that.
Yes, I think you would. I think the Vegas audience would love you.
Oh, thank you.
I think they would love you.
That's
you know,
good.
you have a lot of experience about music, and you and Andrew, I mean, you guys, nobody knows more about show business than you guys, and I think audience.
I don't know about that, but I'm learning from people like you, because it's quite a trip.
Thank you.
I mean, we know there's no business like this.
Well, there isn't, really.
Really, and it stands on its own, and people like Andrew that have done so much great things for this industry and has contributed highly with so many great, successful, talented people in the cabaret world. And speaking of the cabaret world, what is your vision for the cabaret world as we're moving forward, you know, into this?
It's getting younger, Teddy. It's getting younger. You know, I think that it's becoming a more diverse audience. You know, years ago, if you weren't doing that quiet little unknown ballad, you were not considered in the club, you know? I think now it's a little bit wider, the spectrum.
Yes, yes. But you're also right in as much as that the artistic base is much younger than it was
It's becoming younger.
10 years ago.
And even the older people have a younger point of view about it.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you know, the fact that, you know, you mentioned the Broadway World Awards, which we're going to talk about subsequently. But, you know, when you look at the amount of the really young people, the 30 and under artists who are
that are interested in
and who are winning awards this season, a woman like Kristen Petty, for example.
Sure, who I love.
Or she is amazing.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Now you should have her on your show too.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that's
She and I have,
certainly
we've
someone
talked about
that
that.
Andrew's working
But
on
there's
right
also
now.
Joshua Dixon is an example. Terrence Matthews just won 2 MAC awards on the same night.
But it's great to have the new voices out there, and what I love is when it meets the established voices, when it meets Marilyn May, Karen Akers, Andrea Malkovich, when it meets that. Because what you learn is it's really not that far away. It's nice every decade to have just a little different spin on something, a little different take on something. And that's kind of what I tried to do with this show. And that's why every time you go into the Metropolitan Room to see one of my shows, which is, by the way, titled the same, They Wrote the Song, it's another version of it. It's like saying Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. The first volume were the songs of our generation. The second volume will be the songs we grew up with, which will be kind of a variety of
Or
things.
for several people like Love Me Do.
Correct.
Which we're about
and
ready
done
to play.
completely differently. Oh, you're going to play it now? Or are you going to play it later?
No, in about 30 seconds, I'm getting the word that it's time
Oh, good. Because
do that.
it's a real, my friends out there listening, I hope you're going to love it, because it's a really different take on the Beatles.
Let's hear it right here with Julie Budd, WPAT.
Thank you, Gary.
Oh, you're welcome. Wow, that's very different.
It's very different. We did it in the first version of They Wrote the Song, particularly repeated.
Oh, yeah?
How you doing, Carmine?
I was a big Beatles fan. I never thought of doing it this way.
It's another take. It's like fever.
What song would you like to hear next? Which one are we doing next?
We're at full speed.